There is a very specific, humiliating terror that strikes when the noise of your life finally stops and you are left completely, inescapably alone with yourself. It rarely happens when you are physically isolated. The most dangerous loneliness hits you in the middle of a crowded room or late at night when the screen finally goes dark and the exhaustion of performing for the world breaks your posture. You know this feeling. It is the suffocating, heavy pressure in your chest, whispering that if you stop moving, if you stop achieving, and if you stop making yourself useful to other people, you will simply cease to exist. Your biology has hardwired you to equate isolation with a physical death. To be separated from the ancestral tribe meant you would be eaten in the dark. Today, that ancient survival software is glitching, convincing you that being unperceived by society is a death sentence. So you run. You manufacture constant, deafening noise. You tolerate parasitic relationships. You scroll until your eyes burn, and you execute a desperate, exhausting dance for the validation of strangers, all to avoid spending a single hour in the terrifying company of your own unfiltered mind. You treat your own solitude like a predator hunting you. But what if this desperate, lifelong escape is the exact reason you feel so incredibly weak? What if the empty room you are running from is not a tomb, but the only forge capable of curing the profound fragility of your spirit? Most people will spend their entire lives as hostages to this social dependency, terrified that if they drop the act, they will fade into nothingness. But the radical transformation waiting for you on the other side of this fear is the alchemy of turning the agonizing ache of isolation into an impenetrable, heavily fortified sanctuary. You are about to discover that the empty room you have been fleeing is actually a throne room waiting for its king. When you stop medicating your loneliness with shallow distractions and instead turn to face the void, you do not dissolve. The noise of the world falls away. The desperate hunger for validation starves to death, and you are left with a terrifying, unshakable psychological sovereignty. You stop being a victim of abandonment and become the architect of your own empire. But to build this fortress, you must unlearn the modern lie that connection is always a virtue, and you must look to the ancient masters of isolation who weaponized their solitude to become untouchable. In the late 12th century, the Japanese capital of Kyoto was a vision of hell. Earthquakes shattered palaces, fires turned grand estates to ash, and famines choked the Kamo River with the bodies of the forgotten. Among the elite court was a man named Kamo no Chomei. He had spent his life playing the exhausting game of social climbing, seeking the approval of peers and attaching his identity to his status, his wealth, and his public perception. But as the physical and political world collapsed around him, Chomei watched the social masks of his peers disintegrate. He saw that the grand architecture of human connection was as fragile as paper in a hurricane. Stripped of his positions and disillusioned by the desperate clinging of society, Chomei did the unthinkable. He did not desperately try to rebuild his network or cling to the fading warmth of the herd. He turned his back on the capital and walked deep into the rugged mountains of Hino. There, he built a dwelling so radically minimal it defied human comfort, a 10-foot square hut. It was a space barely large enough to hold a single man, constructed with joints that could be easily dismantled and moved, signifying his total detachment from permanent roots. In this absolute, crushing isolation, Chomei wrote the Hojioki, a masterpiece of Japanese literature. He did not write about misery. He wrote about absolute, intoxicating liberation. By removing the eyes of society, he removed their power over him. In a space so small that society could not fit, his mind expanded to encompass the universe. He He proved that when you willingly step into the abyss of loneliness and build a structure within it, the abyss ceases to be a void and becomes an impenetrable, heavily fortified sanctuary. To claim this power, you must construct the 10-foot square hut inside your own mind. The ancient Japanese understood a profound duality that we have forgotten. They drew a sharp line between Sabishisa, the hollow, desperate, aching pain of loneliness and missing the herd, and Kodoku, the dignified, powerful, and deliberate state of absolute solitude. To transition from the agony of Sabishisa to the supreme power of Kodoku, you must implement a brutal educational framework of the mind. First comes severance. You must consciously cut the invisible parasitic cords of external perception. You must actively dismantle the belief that an experience, a thought, or a victory only matters if someone else validates it with their attention. Second is containment. The modern mind is bloated, bleeding out into the lives of thousands of strangers through digital screens, diluting its power across a vast, meaningless network. You must aggressively pull your energy back, shrink your psychological universe to the immediate physical space you occupy. Third is transmutation. When you sit within this contained silence, the noise of your own insecurities will amplify. The demons of self-doubt will scream. The framework demands that you do not reach for a distraction to drown them out. You must sit perfectly still in the center of your mental hut and let the raw, panicked energy of loneliness burn until it distills into cold, focused, self-sustaining power. This is not a relaxing weekend retreat. This is a violent psychological crucible that will demand everything you have. The escalation begins softly, deceptively. You start by walking into a public space alone, leaving your phone locked in a drawer at home. You will feel the phantom vibrations against your leg, the twitch in your fingers, the rising tide of social panic as your brain realizes it has no digital pacifier to hide behind. You will feel the burning gaze of strangers and the agonizing weight of being unperceived by your network. But then the demand escalates exponentially. You must deliberately engineer a period of total, unbroken isolation, a weekend where you do not speak a single word, consume a single piece of media, or contact a single human being. As the hours stretch into the dark of night, the walls of your mind will begin to close in. Your ego, which has survived entirely on the reflection of itself in the eyes of others, will begin to suffocate. It will whisper terrible lies to you. It will tell you that you are forgotten. It will tell you that you are worthless because no one is looking at you. It will scream that you are disappearing from the fabric of reality. This is the extinction burst of your social dependency, and it pushes further still. You must take the most terrifying, consequential decisions of your life, your purpose, your career, your relationships, and you must make them in this pitch-black isolation, refusing to seek the counsel, approval, or validation of a single living soul. You must bear the crushing gravitational weight of total autonomy. When the panic peaks, when the silence is so loud it rings in your ears, and the isolation feels like a physical pressure threatening to break your ribs, you do not move. You hold your ground. You let the weak, dependent, desperate parts of your psychology die of starvation in the cold mountain air of your own mind. When you finally walk out of the fire of this isolation, you are no longer the same organism. You undergo a permanent, irreversible identity shift. You stop being a fragile social creature surviving on the scraps of attention thrown by a distracted world. You become a sovereign entity. You no longer view loneliness as a tragic punishment inflicted upon you by a cruel society. You view solitude as a heavily guarded armory that you alone hold the keys to. The frantic desperation leaves your eyes. The nervous people-pleasing micro-expressions vanish from your face. People will look at you and sense a dangerous magnetic stillness. They can smell the absolute absence of need on you. And ironically, it is this exact lack of need that makes them gravitate toward you. But their presence is no longer a lifeline. It is merely a choice.
You can walk into a crowded, chaotic room and feel the exact same unshakable, silent sanctuary as you do alone in the dark. You have stopped trying to fit into the world because you have realized that you carry an entire unbreakable world inside of yourself. The 10-foot square hut is no longer a place you go to hide. It is the impenetrable psychological armor you wear into the brutal battlefield of everyday life. You are standing at the threshold of the mountains right now. The constant, deafening noise of the modern world is a carefully engineered narcotic designed to keep you weak, dependent, and easily manipulated by the primal fear of exile. You can choose to keep swallowing the pill. You can choose to keep surrounding yourself with shallow distractions, begging to be seen, terrified of the quiet, and running from the one empty room that holds your true power. Or you can build the hut. You can step deliberately into the darkness and discover what kind of absolute monster of focus and resilience you become when you no longer need anyone to hold your hand. The choice is between a comfortable, crowded prison and a terrifying, unshakable sanctuary. If you are ready to stop running from the silence and start weaponizing it, then you already belong with us. At the Mind Supremacy Codex, we do not offer comfortable lies or social pacifiers. We do not teach you how to be popular. We teach you how to be powerful. We forge sovereign minds in the crushing fires of isolation. Join us. Subscribe to the Codex. Step into the void. Close the door behind you, and let us teach you how to reign in the empty room.